You didn't suddenly become bad with money. You didn't forget how to budget. You didn't start spending like a billionaire with a crypto addiction. But somehow, groceries cost more, rent costs more, gas costs more, and even your lazy, I don't want to cook frozen pizza costs more. The weird part? Your paycheck didn't grow at the same speed. That frustrating gap where life gets more expensive but your income doesn't is called inflation. Inflation sounds like something economists argue about on TV, but it's actually just the story of why your money quietly loses power over time. Today, we're breaking down inflation, what it is, why it happens, who benefits, who gets crushed, and why your frozen pizza is now emotionally expensive. Let's go. Prices rising. Inflation is simple. Inflation equals prices rising across the economy over time. Not just one thing, not just eggs, not just rent, most things. If a frozen pizza used to cost $5 and now costs $7, that's inflation in action. The important part, inflation isn't about one store raising prices. It's about the general level of prices increasing. So what? Because when prices rise, your money buys less. Your paycheck didn't shrink, but its power did. Same wallet, weaker wallet. Okay, moving on. Purchasing power. This is the core idea. Purchasing power equals what your money can actually buy. If $50 used to buy groceries for 2 days, gas for half a tank, and 5 frozen pizzas, and now it buys groceries for 1 day, gas for a quarter tank, and 3 frozen pizzas, your purchasing power dropped. You didn't change, the money did. Money is like a phone battery that slowly drains over time. You don't notice immediately, then suddenly it's at 12%. That's inflation. Cool. Now let's talk about why this happens.
Money supply. One major cause of inflation is how much money exists in the economy. If more money is created faster than goods and services are produced, prices tend to rise. Why? Because more money is chasing the same amount of stuff. Imagine 10 people bidding on one frozen pizza. Price goes up. Now imagine those same 10 people suddenly have double the money. That pizza is getting expensive. This doesn't mean printing money always causes inflation instantly. Real economies are more complicated, but money supply matters. Okay, next piece. Demand surges. Another cause of inflation is demand increasing quickly. If people suddenly want more of something than companies can produce, prices rise. Example: everyone suddenly decides to build home offices at the same time. Desks sell out, chairs sell out, webcams disappear, prices jump. This is called demand pull inflation, demand pulling prices upward. It's basically the economic version of concert tickets selling out in 14 seconds. Too many buyers, not enough supply. Same frozen pizza problem, different scale. Moving on. Supply problems. Now, flip it. Sometimes demand stays normal, but supply drops. That also raises prices. If fewer trucks deliver frozen pizzas, if factories slow down, if ingredients cost more, prices rise. This is called cost-push inflation. Businesses usually don't absorb rising costs forever. They pass them on. That frozen pizza didn't become luxury food, it just became more expensive to make and deliver. So what? Inflation can come from demand rising or supply shrinking. 2 different roads, same destination, higher prices. Okay, next. The wage lag. Here's why inflation feels personal. Prices move faster than wages. Businesses can raise prices quickly. Salaries usually change slowly. Annual raises, contract cycles, job switches. Meanwhile, groceries update prices weekly. That creates the feeling that life is getting harder, even if you're working just as much. Your frozen pizza budget notices inflation before your boss does. This delay is one reason inflation feels painful. Okay, but it gets more interesting.
The inflation loop. Inflation can feed itself. Here's how. Prices rise. Workers ask for higher wages. Companies raise prices to cover wages. Workers ask for higher wages again. That cycle is sometimes called a wage price spiral. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, inflation sticks around longer. It's like turning up the thermostat because you're cold, while the heater is already warming up. Too much adjustment creates overheating. Economies can do the same thing. Okay, next concept. Expectations. Inflation isn't just about math, it's about beliefs. If businesses expect prices to rise, they raise prices sooner. If workers expect inflation, they demand higher wages sooner. Expectations can make inflation more persistent. If everyone thinks frozen pizza will cost more next year, companies might just raise the price now. Not evil, just predictable. Humans are weirdly good at making predictions come true. Moving on. Who gets hurt? Inflation doesn't hurt everyone equally. People on fixed income struggle the most. If your income stays the same while prices rise, life gets tighter. Savings also lose value during inflation. If cash sits still while prices rise, its purchasing power drops. Your frozen pizza savings account becomes a sadness account. Inflation quietly punishes people who don't have income that adjusts with prices. Okay, now the flip side. Who benefits? Some people actually benefit from inflation, especially borrowers. If you owe money and inflation rises, you repay loans with cheaper dollars. Example: you borrow money when frozen pizzas cost $5. You repay when frozen pizzas cost $8. The loan didn't change, the money's value did. Debt becomes easier to carry when inflation is high, assuming income rises too. This is one reason inflation conversations often involve housing and mortgages. Okay, next.
Central banks. Most countries have a central bank. Their job includes keeping inflation stable. Not zero, stable. Why not zero? Because a small amount of inflation encourages spending and investment instead of hoarding money. Central banks often aim for low, steady inflation. Think of inflation like seasoning in food. A little? Fine. Too much? Ruined frozen pizza. How do central banks control inflation? Interest rates. Let's talk about that. Interest rates. Interest rates are basically the price of borrowing money. When inflation rises too fast, central banks often raise interest rates. Higher interest rates make loans more expensive, credit cards more expensive, mortgages more expensive. People borrow less. Businesses invest less. Demand cools down. Prices stabilize. It's like slowing traffic by narrowing the highway. Less spending pressure, less inflation pressure. Okay, but there's a trade-off. The trade-off. Raising interest rates slows inflation, but it can also slow the economy. Businesses hire less, invest less, expand less. Sometimes unemployment rises. Controlling inflation can feel like braking a car too hard. Necessary, but uncomfortable. Economics is full of trade-offs. There's no perfect setting, just better and worse outcomes. Okay, moving on. Measurement. How do we even know inflation is happening? Economists track the price of a basket of common goods and services: food, housing, transportation, healthcare, utilities. They measure how that basket's cost changes over time. This gives a snapshot of inflation trends. It's not perfect. Everyone spends differently. Your frozen pizza lifestyle may not match the average household, but it gives a useful signal. Okay, next.
Lifestyle inflation. There's another inflation people confuse with economic inflation: lifestyle inflation. This happens when spending rises as income rises. You get a raise, you upgrade apartments, you upgrade phones, you upgrade frozen pizza to artisanal, wood-fired organic frozen pizza. That's not economic inflation, that's human behavior, and it often feels the same financially. More money coming in, still broke. Different cause, same stress. Moving on. Shrinkflation. Here's a sneaky one. Shrinkflation equals products getting smaller instead of more expensive. The price stays the same, the amount decreases. Same box, less frozen pizza. Companies do this because people notice price increases more than size decreases. It's inflation wearing a disguise. Your brain thinks nothing changed. Your stomach disagrees. Okay, next. The time effect. Inflation compounds over time. Small annual increases add up. Prices today compared to decades ago look shocking because inflation stacks year after year. Not overnight, gradually, like software updates slowing your phone. Each one seems small, then the phone struggles to open the camera.
Same with prices. Your childhood frozen pizza price exists in a different economic universe. Okay, next. Why inflation spikes? Inflation usually rises faster during big disruptions. Examples include supply chain breakdowns, energy price shocks, wars affecting trade, rapid economic recoveries, sudden changes in spending. When normal production and demand patterns break, prices move faster. Economies like stability, disruptions create price turbulence, and suddenly frozen pizza becomes a luxury item again. Okay, moving on. The psychological part. Inflation feels worse than many economic problems because it's visible everywhere. You see it weekly. Grocery store, gas station, rent, restaurants, apps, delivery fees. It's constant feedback. Even small price increases feel personal when repeated often. You don't track stock market changes daily, but you remember frozen pizza going from $5 to $8. Humans notice repeated pain. Okay, next. Inflation versus greed. You'll often hear people blame inflation entirely on companies raising prices. Reality is more complicated. Businesses respond to costs, demand, competition, expectations, interest rates. Sometimes companies do increase prices aggressively, but inflation across an entire economy usually involves multiple forces at once: supply, demand, money, energy, labor. Not just frozen pizza executives plotting in a secret meeting. Okay, final stretch. The big idea. Inflation is not random. It's the result of how much money exists, how much stuff is produced, how fast people spend, how businesses price, how governments respond, how central banks set interest rates. It's the background weather of the economy. You don't control it, but it affects everything, especially frozen pizza. All right, let's recap. Rapid recap. Inflation means prices rise over time. Purchasing power falls when prices rise. Money supply can influence inflation. Demand spikes can raise prices. Supply problems can raise prices. Wages usually lag behind inflation. Expectations can reinforce inflation. Borrowers may benefit from inflation. Savings lose value during inflation. Central banks use interest rates to control inflation. Inflation compounds over long periods. Shrinkflation hides price increases. Lifestyle inflation is different from economic inflation. Final takeaway. Inflation isn't just an economic term. It's why your money feels weaker than it used to. Understanding inflation won't stop frozen pizza from getting expensive, but it helps him understand why it's happening, which is the first step to making smarter money decisions. If this explained inflation clearly, hit like. If frozen pizza inflation personally offended you, subscribe.